our next presentation, we're going to go a little different direction. Dr. Bhrett McCabe, he is a licensed clinical psychologist, a sports psychologist, and a performance coaching specialist for athletes and business people alike. Similar to Mr. McLean, Dr. McCabe was also a standout athlete at the collegiate level. He joined the baseball team at LSU as a walk-on relief pitcher and left as a four-year letterman, a member of 2 national championship teams, 3 SEC championship teams, and 3 College World Series teams. He has a PhD degree in clinical psychology from LSU and completed an internship at Brown. After completing his training, Dr. McCabe worked in the corporate sector, and he is the founder of the Mindside, a performance coaching organization in Birmingham, Alabama. He works with numerous athletes all across all sports at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. He's the sports and performance psychologist for the University of Alabama Athletic Department and has also worked with other collegiate programs including Florida State, the University of Cincinnati, Samford University, Missouri State, and Texas State. Over the past 10 years in particular, he's become a trusted resource for golfers of all levels, including those competing at the highest level on the LPGA and PGA tours. He has 2 students that have broken 59. One is a junior in a sanctioned tournament and the other on the Korn Ferry Tour. Dr. McCabe has presented twice at National PGA Teaching and Coaching Summits and regularly contributes to Golf Magazine. You can find him on Morning Drive and does a lot of work with TPI as well. He's also recorded 324 episodes of his weekly podcast called The Secrets to Winning. He's authored 3 books, including The Game Plan, The Mindside Manifesto, and one that actually launches today. So I know we're not supposed to judge a book by a cover, but hopefully it's okay to judge one by its name because the name of this book is pretty awesome. It's called Break Free from Suckville. So if you can't get on board with Dr. McCabe on that alone, I don't know what'll get you. We're so fortunate to have you here, Dr. McCabe, especially on the day that your book is officially released. So thank you for joining us. Please welcome Dr. Bhrett McCabe.
Thank you very much. All right. So, what a great honor to be here. And thank you to my friends here in the PGA sections, Jamie Mulligan and so many other people here that I see in the audience and people that have supported me for the last 10 years. So I'm greatly appreciative of everything that's here. I'm going to talk about something a little bit different today because I know none of you in the audience ever have players that struggle. If you did, you wouldn't be here, right? But the truth of the matter is struggle defines our life, and it defines everything that we do. I got into psychology because of my own struggles. I was a good pitcher. I was somebody who did everything right. I did what was asked of me. I was good, but I never really got to be great. And it wasn't until I lost what I loved, I lost my ability, I lost some functioning, I got injured, that I found it mentally. And it was funny, when the physical skills went away, my mental skills had to step up. And that's what led me to becoming a psychologist. So this book that I wrote, and I'm not here to do a plug on it, but please buy it. I wrote it because about 85% of the people that come in my office, or now remotely, they don't call me when things are good. There's only one player I've had that's called me at top of the world and said, hey, let's work. And it was a gentleman that you just saw on the video. And that was when he was turning pro. And we have a pretty big team. He has a team in Spain and a team over here in the United States. And so I like to stay in the shadows with John. But what an amazing, amazing young man. And he's kind of had like a Rory-esque maturation process. And it's kind of cool to see Rory win yesterday, to watch how he's matured mentally over the last 5 years. And John is following that pathway pretty closely. But most people come in and see me and they're stuck. They're frustrated. And I'm not going to say that they're completely valid in what they're thinking, but to them they are. And they're struggling. And usually I get a call from the coach that says, yo, you got to help this person. Everything I'm trying is not working. They're frustrated. And where do we go? And so I started thinking about a book, and I was like, you know, I could write another book in the mental game, how to breathe, how to focus, do it full of platitudes, which is all great. I've got every one of those books on my bookshelf. or I can get in the real drama and go after what really happens when players struggle. And so I had a player of mine who's trying to make it out on the tour, and he's played very well. And he said, Doc, I'm the mayor of Suckville. And that's what started it. Because I described him what Suckville is, and I'll go into detail with it here in a little bit, but he goes, man, I own that place. I'm like, yeah, so do I. We all do. But you have to understand as a coach that you're a guide. You're the person there not to actually make them do it, but to stand side by side with them and help guide them through it. Because the greatest lessons in life don't come from when we win, they come from when we struggle. Now, I'm not one of those guys that's going to sit up here and say, you have to fail to succeed. You don't. You actually don't. And there's a lot of myths in the game that I'll try to blow up. But the truth of the matter is that we all have struggle. Struggle's like pain, right? You ever told somebody who has back pain, yeah, your pain's not as bad as mine? It doesn't work. Well, it's the same as struggle. You know, if John were to call me, or Sam Burns, one of my other clients, or Billy Horschel, and they're struggling, and I'm like, well, y'all are all in the top 20 in the world, but they're allowed to struggle, right? But it's all relative. So I never judge it. What I try to do is give them a chance to understand it and work on it. I had a client that I worked with, I still work with, a great player, great guy by the name of Hudson Swafford, and he called in, and I had one of those unbelievable moments, right, where he came to work with me on a Sunday and he won that week. I was like, God, I'm so good. And it just got, I was just fortunate to be on his team. And, I was like, one time I said, hey, bud, as we were entering the playoffs this year, he was stressing about how he was hitting the ball. And I said, hey, this time last year, you were on a medical and you had about 3 starts left. And now you're stressing because you're not high enough in the FedEx Cup. I said, it's all about perspective. And ended up finishing 35th in the FedEx Cup. So it's all about perspective. And one of the things I try to do with everybody is allow them to validate what they feel. So today I'm going to go through some slides. I'll probably diverge, have a good time. I can guarantee you this jacket's going to come off in a little bit. I haven't worn a jacket in a long time, and I can tell why. So, so that's going to come off here in a little bit, and I'll probably roll up my sleeves. So let's have some fun here, okay? All right, so fear and struggle. It's the emotions that we all have. It's what we do. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a lot of situations where I get to walk fairways, and I get to stand in boardrooms, and I get to stand in locker rooms and work with players, men and women, who are going through a variety of different things. I'll share some experiences of playing for the greatest college baseball coach ever and coaching in the coaching department of the greatest college football coach ever. I don't know many guys that have ever done that. So I've got the secrets from both. Yesterday, or Sunday, Saturday, I don't even know what day it is. Saturday, we had the, I do know it's launch day, Breakfield from Suckville. No, on Saturday, we had a reunion of our 30th anniversary of our first national title team. And none of us are still in shape. But the truth of the matter was, I got to be around some really great people who dominated what they did and played a long time in the major leagues. So I'll try to share some of those secrets as well. I think we tabulated last year. My players that I'm fortunate enough to be on their team won over $17 million on the PGA Tour. I know that's only a fraction of what Jamie's client won, but we were trying to catch them. We were trying hard. So, we're going to talk about success, right? Success is probably one of the most misunderstood things that we have out there. You're not born successful. You're not born with a certain, killer mindset. You're born with an opportunity to define and hone your skills, to work harder, to find your way. I was raised by the son of a career Air Forceman, an officer, a lieutenant colonel, and his thing was find a way, always. He taught me everything about the game of baseball because he played college baseball, but it was never, let's go find the next coach. It was, let's figure it out. And I think we're a little stuck in today's world, and I benefit just like you do, but we're hyper-coached, over-coached, and over-resourced. That's our job as coaches, to make sure that we funnel the information appropriately to our players so they learn it. And I want to give you a head start on your competition to help your players get better. So what determines excellence? We don't know. Don't know. You can watch the NFL draft come out. We were talking yesterday about the Miami. Jim and I were talking. And by the way, what a great opportunity to follow a legend. And what a pain in the ass to be leading into lunch. So hang with me, okay? But Jim, it's a pleasure to follow you, and I've been a fan of your work for a long time. But what determines it? We don't know. You know, the Miami Dolphins drafted Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama and passed on Justin Herbert, and they're getting bashed, right? All the teams that passed on Aaron Rodgers. You know, you look at those things, it's like, what is it? Can we predict it? And what many times we don't understand are the factors around the athlete. I was sitting with a general manager of an NBA franchise. We were talking about top players. And I said, sir, I was in with your team, your first and second year players. And I asked him, what's the most stressful thing that you have to deal with as a player? The guy raises his hand and goes, money. And all the players looked over to him and were like, you got to be kidding me. You were the first round draft pick. You were the fifth pick in the draft. He said, yeah, but you don't realize how many people are calling me right now asking for money. And the other guys are like, I mean, we're living together, eating wings from the gas station, and you're complaining about money. See, it's all relative, right? So when we look at excellence, many times there's great opportunities. There's a spark of insight that pops. There's good luck. But we don't know what produces excellence. I get called by agents quite often in the golf world, help me predict which college kids coming out are going to make it. It's like playing craps. You play the odds, you let it roll, or you let it flip here, and then you go. And it's an odds game. But what happens is we try and we over-evaluate excellence too often. We overthink it, we overplan it, and we also over-assume that our influence on it is much greater. Now, the truth of the matter about excellence is that even if I did put out a plan of what it took, very few people would do it because it's too damn hard to have to sacrifice what you have to sacrifice in order to have success. And this, I'm talking to you as well, as coaches. If you want to be the best in your field, it's going to come with sacrifices. It's going to come with sacrifices that you're not going to want to make. But you have to choose to make the choice of what it takes. My coach was sitting right before he went out and spoke to the American Baseball Coaches Association meeting. He had just come off his 4th national title in 6 years. And he was sitting there, and our assistant coach looked at his slides and said, Skip, his name was Skip Bertman. He said, Skip, you've got everything that we do in your slides. Don't you think we should take it out? We're talking to our competition. He goes, nah, not one of the guys in the room are willing to do it. They'll just blame some other resource, like they don't have enough money or they didn't get the right players. It's simple. Coach Saban doesn't do anything more special than anybody else. He just is unrelenting. When we win national titles on Monday night, on Tuesday morning, you guys are coming in and out of the building getting treatment. Wednesday morning at 7:30, the next season starts. All the talk about the national title is over. The older players have moved on, the newer players are there, and the new coaches are sitting in that room and they're ready to go. And there is usually a statement made that rattles the cage of 1 or 2 coaches and says, yeah, we're starting new. Let's go. See, we all want to take a break. We all want to relax. We all want to rest. The truth of the matter is what excellence takes is an unrelenting drive to achieve it. And it's not that I'm saying you can't do it. What I'm saying is, oh, hell yeah, you can do it. But you have to be willing to do what it takes to get there. And we look at golf. I was fortunate enough to play there on Saturday. Made par. Did okay. But what does it take, right? And that's the hard thing. Because as Jim was talking about with Liskey, didn't practice. But what an unbelievable mindset to say, today I didn't have it, but tomorrow I'm okay. I know I'll have it. Right? If Jim had gone out there and said, no, you got to go out and hit balls on the range, he would have taken Liskey's formula and scrambled it. Bruce was like, yeah, that's good. I've got it. And there's other players that have to hit balls afterwards just to feel good to go have a nice dinner. And it doesn't really matter. So I don't really know what the formula for success is in golf either. Not in a specific, how many balls do we need to hit? How many things do we need to do? What's the TrackMan numbers? You go stand on the range of a college tournament or a mini tour, there's some kids that can absolutely move it. They just, for some reason, can't succeed. I don't know why that is. We can all hypothesize, but we don't know. I've got a kid who's been trying for 6 years to make it. Just got into final stage, and he'll get his card. And I'm pretty confident the kid will be on the PGA Tour next year because he just missed his Korn Ferry playoff due to Mondays by very few number of points. It took 6 years to mature to the point to understand what he was dealing with, right? And this, I think, sums up golf beautifully, the famous Arnold Palmer text, right? Golf is deceptively simple and endlessly complicated, satisfies the soul and frustrates the intellect, same time rewarding and maddening, and it is without a doubt the greatest game ever created. I'll work with players who come, they may be a Hall of Famer in another sport. They may have built a $4 billion business, and they'll always say, I can master anything, but you can't master golf. And it drives them nuts. Like, I can do it. And it's amazing to watch them melt when they're trying. You guys see those people? Like, oh, I've always been successful. Why can't I do this? I don't know. It's hard, right? But we live in a world of struggle. We don't live in a world of success. We live in a perception of success, but what we really live in is struggle. We live in a world where things are hard, and there's friction, and there's frustration, and there's emotional imbalance. And we all want to be balanced emotionally. We want to feel like we got it all together. And the problem with golf is the days that it's so good, it is phenomenal. But then it's not. It's kind of like going out with your friends. You have no plans for the night, and next thing you say, hey, let's go get some chips and salsa somewhere. You end up there, you have a couple margaritas, and you end up on this epic night, right? It was so much fun. So much fun. You all had a blast. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, you're heading in. It's like, great night. And then 2 weeks later, somebody says, let's get the crew together and try that again. And it flops miserably. You're sitting there like, well, okay, let's try this again. It doesn't work. And that's a lot of times what golf is. That's what success is. Players have a good day 3 days ago, and they're trying to repeat it today. Okay, now what were those feels that I had? What were those thought processes? Let me eat the same thing. Now, I come from the baseball world. Superstitions are real. If you have a bad day, you wash your hat or socks. If you have a great day, you don't change anything. And it doesn't matter how bad it stinks. You wear it, and you wear it with pride. But I think baseball gives me the understanding of what struggle is all about. Like, I want you guys to understand this as a pitcher. Maybe 5% of the time I ever had my good stuff. And in fact, if you ask pitchers, do you want to feel good? Most of them will say no, because it's a very scary place to be. Because what happens is you tend to raise your expectations, you feel too powerful, and you get moving too fast. And you're better off to be like, the best games I ever pitched in college were the days that I was like, Coach, I don't know if I can throw today, but I'll give it a shot in the bullpen. Now, you paid for it afterwards, but man, you pitched so good. Because you had no expectations. And golf is just built with expectations. And what happens is we end up frustrated more than happy. If you go sit, I made it about 20 minutes. You go sit in a 19th hole, and you ask players how you playing. How did you go today? And they give you this. Well, I mean, it could have been this. You go to a junior tournament, and you stand in the tent. And I know every one of you guys have done that. You sit in the tent, and the kid comes in, and they're like, well, how did you play? What'd you shoot? Oh, 76. But I mean, it could have been if it wasn't for this. Nobody can ever say, it was really good. I battled so beautifully out there. I mean, I really stayed in the fight. And I think that's what gives John such an advantage over so many of his competition. John wants to win every event he's in, and he's all about it. But sometimes he'll look at a fourth place finish as a victory. Like, yeah, that was great. I took what was available, and I made the most of it. But we live frustrated. Like, I'll ask players, and I'll get this death look. So what's your plan when you don't have it? What do you mean? No, like when you don't have it, what's your plan? I don't know. I mean, you don't, so what are you doing? Like, you're just preparing to have your best stuff? Well, no, I mean, that's why I practice. So I had a kid that was sitting on the 18th hole of a qualifying tournament. And he was, no, take that back. He was on the first hole. He was 6 inside the cut number. And he missed qualifying to advance. And all of a sudden, he started hitting high rights. And I said, why does that happen? I don't know. So what do you mean you don't know? He said, no, I just usually after a tournament, I go to my coach. He gets me dialed back in. I go back out again and go play again. I'm like, wait a minute. You have no idea why the ball's going high right. No. I'm like, wow, what a great Mercedes patient you are. You come in, you see your coach, you pay your coach, you leave, but you didn't learn anything. In fact, you don't know what to do when you don't have it. What do? Well, I just try to keep swinging and figure it out. Oh, so you just want me to bring the range out to the golf course and go play? Well, no. I mean, that's what we're working on. I'm really working on doing some whatever in the swing. I'm like, yeah, but you're not playing golf at that point. Now you're allowing struggle to define you. And it was like, oh my God, I've never even thought about that. And so what happens is players, a lot of times the frustration and the struggle is not the frustration of the game, it's the frustration at themselves that they can't execute what they've trained. Like if you really get them to talk, they'll make the statement like, I just don't understand why this has happened. I've done so much work. I've put in so much time. And yet, the other sports I work with, I never hear that conclusion. I never hear a football player say, I have done so much work in the line, working on my handwork, that when I was going against an All-American, he kept beating me. I don't understand why the 500 reps I did with my hand movement just didn't seem to show up today. What they say is, I need to get better on dealing with them and what they're presenting to me. But yet in golf, we sit there so stuck on what the ideal is. So we get in a situation, these are the phone calls we get, right? Like, I'm sure you guys get these too, the famous dad texts on the course. Oh my God, what is going on out here? This should not happen. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Like, I'm not there. Can you hook up PGA Tour Live so I can watch it, please? Right? And I'm like, this is a great day. Let's see how they handle it. No. To get the scholarship, they can't have a day like this. I'm like, oh, yes, they can. Show me how they deal with it. I tell every one of my parents that if your kid has the worst day, they need to stay at the course, have lunch with all the other players, and hang out in the group. Because if their first thing to do is get on the phone and call their coach and find a range and fix it, they're showing me they can't handle it. Because in the truth, nobody cares what you shot. We're so self-absorbed, nobody really cares. We're so worried about what people think about us that we ignore everyone else. And so this is the phone calls we get, right? Or you get ghosted, which is even worse. Passive-aggressive stuff, right? And I'm like, fine. I always get, hey, well, did you talk to him after the round? No. Why would I? They can deal with it. But it is funny after a victory. My average length of time for first contact with the player is 3 days. After a struggle, it's like an hour. Why isn't it the same? Like, really? Why isn't it the same? So these are the calls we get, right? Doc, I'm better than this. Oh, I need to change coaches. Why? You ever go to a restaurant and have a bad meal? You all of a sudden change what you're doing. I mean, unless you're going to sushi. And do you ever change what you're doing? No. You just order something different. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe you as a player aren't communicating properly with your coach. Maybe you're taking your coach on a wild goose chase. I said, maybe it's like going to the ER and saying, I hurt. The ER physician goes, where? I hurt. Well, where? You find it. They come back and they're like, yeah, it looks like you got a bulging disc at L5. And they're like, no, but my head hurts. Okay, but we schedule you with the neurosurgeon. It's not their, the physician's just doing their analysis the best they can. If the player doesn't understand what's going on, then we're going to send everybody on a wild goose chase and we're going to get caught up in their emotion. And emotion is wonderful because it does give insight. But at the end of the day, that insight needs to direct us in the right spot. And this self-talk that it gets verbalized out is reflective, 1,000% reflective. And we need them to vent. Because one thing you'll learn as a psychologist is the first answer is never the real answer. Instead of responding, which I'm going to talk about, instead of going, okay, I got it, make them repeat it a couple times. Make them just ask this simple question, why? Why? Like, I do a lot of work with corporations and sales teams. And because one of the things I teach them is don't take the first answer. Yeah, I've got this great car for you. It's too expensive. Okay, well, I'll lower the price. Cost is never the issue. Very rarely. It's just cost has to be lowered until it overcomes my other barrier. But if you don't ask what the barrier is, you never know what the answer is. So I just say, why? Why are you pissed off? Well, wouldn't you be? I don't know. Maybe. Right? But the reality of the fact is the game is hard. It demands everything of our emotions that we have. And so we're not always the most rational. So as a coach, you got to guide them through that. Why? Tell me more. By the way, 95% of players don't journal. They don't do any post-round analysis besides stats, if they even do stats. They don't really dive into what they're feeling. Their whole job is did it, vomited it, let's go. They don't learn anything. I don't like my players to call me after they play because I don't want to hear the verbal diarrhea. I tell them to text me. I had a parent ask me and said, well, isn't that kind of impersonal? I said, no, because your kid's going to have to read the text they sent me. And then what happens is they usually at the end go, yeah, I got it. Thank you. I'm like, yeah. Like, because if not, we're buying into their Suckville. And not only are we their mayor, but we're taking up residence and paying taxes in their world. See, my whole goal today is to give you some tools so that when you get sucked into Suckville of your players, you can guide them out of it. Because it is unbelievably attractive. And we all as coaches, doesn't matter if you're one of the best to ever do it or you're new at this, we all have the desire to do our best. And when somebody's hurting, we want to solve. We want to help. That's what we are. So we get on this roller coaster. I will tell you, I hate Wednesday nights and I hate Friday nights. Wednesday nights, I'm trying to chase my players and find out where they are after we've already talked. And Friday nights, you're just hoping to God they all made the cut. And then you're usually okay on Saturday, and then come Sunday, oh my God, they got a 2-shot lead. Okay. Because it's hard. Yeah, I look at the ascension of Sam Burns, who came in 5th again yesterday. He won 2 weeks ago in Jackson. Could have won last week well, I say that, Sun JM kind of got hot. And then he 5th. And he got in the playoff at Memphis with his B game. And I texted him the morning of Memphis at the FedEx. I said, Bud, you're about 6 back, but it's pretty tough out there at times. Just play the best you got today. Let's put the ball in position and see what happens. And I said, I guarantee you'll be in the playoff at the end. And he texted me and was like, dude, I'm in the playoff. I said, yeah, I know. Go win it. And he played phenomenally well. But here's the deal. He led Napa after 36 holes, dropped the lead. He led Houston going into the final round, dropped the lead. He led Torrey, 4-putted the first hole, dropped the lead. He set the course record at Riviera, had a 5-shot lead, lost it. I had him play with Billy Horschel, one of my clients at Zurich, because I wanted him to have a mentor, somebody who knows how to close, somebody who's won a FedEx Cup. They played the next week. He won in Houston. He was in the final group the week after that, and the Byron Nelson, he took a week off. And then you start looking at it, and you're like, kid's learning how to win. And so we separated his emotion from his process. Allowed him to be emotional because he's 20-something and he's a great kid and he's happy. But what we did is we allowed him to know that the emotional roller coaster is okay, but he can still find his process to compete. It's okay. Get mad, get frustrated. But he texted me after Riviera and goes, I learned more today than I would in a victory. I'm going to win a couple times this year. I said, yeah, I think you are too. And he has. That's what it's all about, right? We didn't go change anything. See, golf is an obstacle course. I love this show, Wipeout, right? A bunch of idiots go out there. I mean, if that's not drunk college right there, I don't know what it is, right? So let's go out there, get greased up, and go run across balls that don't hold us, but this is fun. And you go running, and that's what golf is. You tee off, and you have all the excitement to start, and you're ready to go, and you're going down, and on the 5th hole, whoop, trap door. And then it just sinks you for the day. But there's somebody that has a mistake on 5 that climbs back up and keeps running. Why? Who? What? What is that? I mean, I would love for us to have never miss a shot. And maybe that's the nirvana of what we're all searching for. Golf in the kingdom-esque. boy, it sells a lot of hope, doesn't it? Kind of like diet pills. Hair loss, or hair, thickening stuff. I tried them all, guys. Didn't work. Okay? Truth of the matter is, that's what we're doing. We're selling hope. Hope's a terrible strategy. Terrible strategy. It means you really don't know what's going on, you don't have a clue to fix it, and you're just hoping for a better outcome. I'd rather you paint the picture to them. This stuff sucks, but I'm going to make you the best person to drive through Suckville there is. Now, they probably will go somewhere else, and then they'll come back to you when they're in the middle of it. See, all good things have a struggle. We've got to, okay? We've got to have it. And you got to remember, not everybody is truly aware of how to use the material that we give them. They're not educated, and that's not their fault, okay? I'm telling you, that machine will kill you, okay? But it's you wonder why we have warning labels on coffee at McDonald's until you get burned by it, right? You wonder why you go through the problem setting, what to do in a crash landing on an airplane. You're thinking, oh God, I hope this never happens. But when you need it, you need it. They actually teach you about that when it's calm, relaxed, and there's no stress. They don't wait till you're in the middle of the crud and the turbulence to tell you how to put the oxygen on your face. They teach it to you before you're ready. See, I want you to teach your players to say, Suckville's coming. And when it does, you're going to have the tools to manage it. You know why? Because I am the right person. And if I'm not, then I'm going to bring in some people to help. That's why you're a coach. And whether you teach, you lead, you educate, it doesn't matter. We're talking about everybody. You're a coach because you chose to be in people's lives. It's more than winning. But don't say winning doesn't matter. It's not just, I want to have fun. Because life is a competition. There's winners and there's losers. That's okay. But if you go out on the prairie, there's a gazelle trying to run from a lion. Life is a competition. And I want players to understand what it takes. It's one of the reasons I'm most fascinated by the young guns in golf right now. And I think you're going to see a wave on the LPGA tours coming soon of American-based girls who are going to dominate. I think it's coming. Because I think what's happening is we're teaching kids to win much earlier. We all remember the interview of Tiger Woods talking with Curtis Strange. And he's like, oh, son, you need your time to learn how to win. And Tiger said, no, I don't. I'll win. Right? We used to look at kids coming into college and say, you need to sit for 2 years before you're a starting quarterback. Next thing you know, Johnny Manziel's a starting quarterback, wins the Heisman as a redshirt freshman. And now anybody can win the Heisman, and freshmen are leading teams to national titles because they're trained better moving up the system. But that comes with stress. See, your kids, the people that you lead today, doesn't matter what age they are, trust is the currency. We want to read a book that says love your people to lead them. Sorry, doesn't work. If you just give them freedom, they'll abuse it. They won't use it. True love for somebody is giving them a structure and discipline and help them find their greatness. But trust is the currency. Every kid that I've worked with, every player that I've coached, every team I work with, trust is evaluated daily because they have more people in their ear than they've ever had. I got called the other day for a 9-year-old kid. Can you help my kid? He needs a sports psychologist. My wife, who's a nurse, is like, no, he doesn't. Yeah, he does. He gets a little nervous playing baseball. Oh, good. That's awesome. I don't need a laminated copy of their resume either at 9. But I've gotten them. It's not parents' fault. We're just doing the best we can to give the most to our kids. Right? We all tell our kids to play multiple sports, but colleges are recruiting kids at freshman and high school how they're supposed to play multiple sports when they're wanting to know everybody's lists. And the college coaches I work with across every sport goes, yeah, I want them to play multiple sports, but if I don't get the kid, my rival will. And so we put unbelievable pressure, and this is where you guys need to be the guide. So let's take a look real quick on who we're dealing with. Time about 3 years ago said youth sports is a $15 billion market. $15 billion. Now the estimation is $19 billion. As a parent, if I'm paying you, I want a return on my investment. But you got to level set what they're going to go through, because you have to understand that our kids today are the most stressed I have ever seen in practice, pre-COVID. Kids today are stressed beyond belief. When I went to an all-boys Catholic school in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a tremendous school. The highest ACT score we had was a 33. My daughter's high schools that they've graduated from, they would send out a memo every year. 6 to 7 kids a year would make a perfect score on the ACT. My God, what are we doing? The level of what it takes. See, when we all grew up playing, when that's all, I mean, we had a conversation last night with some young guns, and they were like, man, I've never had to not have GPS on my phone. Like, yeah, it's like it is in life, right? And it was such a brilliant comment, because the truth of the matter is, when you look at other people watching golfers, what do? They go on Instagram, and they can watch anybody across the world swinging a club. And they can go, God, that's the standard, right? See, back in the day when I played, our standard was who was on our state that we had read on the newspaper or seen at a state tournament. I didn't know who people were. I mean, they may have been mythical out there in California. We didn't know who they were. We just knew that they were probably even better than we were, because we were from the bayou of Louisiana. And we just were lucky to have shoes and not have to get alligators on our field. Okay? I know y'all all thinking people in Louisiana have alligators as pets, right? Y'all think that. Sometimes. Okay. But 44% are so depressed that it's tough to function. 1 out of 10 have thought about committing suicide. I will tell you this, 50% of the kids I see, adults, it doesn't matter, I could diagnose with an anxiety disorder. We're more stressed than we've ever been. Youth athletes. So we used to think that college athletes were protected. If you played college sports, you probably never met with somebody like me unless there was a major issue. Now I'm ingrained. I'll be on Wednesday in Alabama at Tuscaloosa. My office is part of the training room. I stand out there, I go around, I talk to the kids that are on the table and they're getting worked on. What this says is that athletes and non-athletes in college are very stressed with overwhelming anxiety, feeling depressed, and having a tough time focusing and working. These are staggering numbers. And we have a kid that comes and works with us. He's a 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid. And you ask him, hey, what's your day like? All right, so I get up in the morning, I go to class, I come home, I have my piano lessons, my Chinese lessons, and then I grab dinner on the way here in the car, and then I come here and I work for an hour and a half on my golf game, and then I get in the car and I do my homework on the way home, and at 10:30 I go to bed at night. And you're like, wow. See, I used to get home, go play with the kids in my neighborhood, play baseball in the backyard, ride my bike, wait for the light to come on, hear my dad's whistle, and that meant dinner time. And you better get home, because there was no cell phone. The last thing you want to do is mom and dad in the car looking for you, right? Kids are stressed. So much so, before the transfer portal came out, which I'm all in favor. I think every kid in college should have the right to transfer one time, pre-graduate school. 14% of males and 10% of females have transferred. So what does that tell you? Now, I put this up on Twitter one day and I got blasted. How dare you? They're in abusive situations. Okay, maybe a tenth of that is an abusive situation. The rest of it is, this is tough. I'm not playing as a freshman. My coach promised me the wrong things. They told me I had a chance to play. Well, you're shooting 80 in qualifying. Yeah, but I know I can do it when the tournament comes on. Yeah, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. See, if you're winning qualifying, make the coach look like an idiot. But if you're fighting for that 6th position, you're not going to play well anyways. I just need a chance. No, your chance is every day to get better. So let me go through our generation here. This is a generation of firsts. The far left column is our baby boomers. Prior to baby boomers, our second column is baby boomers. Third is my generation, Gen Xers. Fourth is Gen Y, and then the Gen Zs. And what we call the Gen Ys are millennials, right? And most of us don't like millennials because, God, they're just not motivated, or it's all BS. What we always want to say, right, is that the next generation, they're not like we were. Yeah, no kidding. No generation is like the previous generation because every generation flip-flops. And if you take a look, being Gen Xer, which is obviously the best, that was the generation where our moms, for the most part, were the first time that both parents worked outside the home consistently. Remember the after-school specials, the latchkey kids? Yeah, I was a latchkey kid. Came home, rode my bike to school. Oh my God, who does that now? Rode my bike to school, came home, got inside, locked the door, or you went and played in the backyard and you called mom and said, hey, can I go over to Tommy's house? Yeah, just be careful. Call me when you get there. Now we have apps that watch our kids move, right? So what we wanted as Gen Xers is we had ways to entertain ourselves. Digital immigrants. We were learning how to use computers and play games and things like that on the line. And we started using email. Like, this is kind of cool. I can send an electronic mail. But you take a look at the newer generation now, they are multitaskers. You walk into any job, they want open space, they have their headphones on, they're streaming something on YouTube, they're watching a video, they're listening to music, and they're working. They do it differently than us. You ask a kid to pay attention for an hour right now, they can't do it. But that's not their fault. These kids today have never been in a situation where there's not a scroll at the bottom of a screen telling them the news, the scores, the weather. Right? And what that tells is that we're hyper vigilant to everything. So when we're giving them information, you have to understand that they're not really thinking, got it. They're managing 3 or 4 different things in their head. Because what they're also doing is they're going home after they work with you and they're looking at videos online. One of the things I have every one of my players do is give their password for Instagram to their manager. And my answer is stay the hell off of it. It is toxic. You're on the PGA Tour. You do not need to be watching golf swings of people that are not the guys you're competing with. And if you are, why are you watching their golf swings? Are you watching what they eat at night? No. They move differently than you. Stop it. My generation, we all know where we were when the Challenger exploded, 8th grade science class. Fall of the Berlin Wall, the moonwalk. I remember where I was when Michael Jackson made that move. And then the O.J. Simpson chase and trial, right? Hopefully that's not too close to home out here. The Gen Y and Gen Z, hyper connected. Can get to anybody, anywhere, anytime. A release of iPod and iPhone, and they've grown up in wartime. By the way, think about it. I was in college. I started my freshman year of 1990. Was the start of the Gulf War. 2021, we're supposedly ending it. I don't know how long we're not going to be in something, but it's coming. That top right column is important because it goes along with this. Current generation wants safety more than anything else. They want security and stability. They want to know they're okay. They want to know they're okay with you. And the number of kids that come in to see me and say this, Doc, I just wish I didn't care what people think about me. And I'm like, but that's a good thing. Because if you didn't care what people think, you'd be a sociopath. Really. When somebody goes, yeah, I don't really worry what people say about me. BS. And if they really don't go in their basement. Okay? They want security and stability. To me, 9/11 changed our security and stability. COVID changed our ability to socially connect. Some of the most core fundamentals of who we are as people. For them, for this youngest generation, slow is bad. If it takes time for them to learn it, that means that they aren't smart enough or good enough to overcome it. Because we all know the growth mindset material from Carol Dweck, which changed a lot of coaching for a long time, and Carol's amazing. But the truth of the matter is, we're all a combination of growth and fixed. There's aspects of us that were growth. There's aspects of us that are fixed, and it also depends on time. But these are pretty universal. They want it fast, easy. They want to be entertained. They want it to be fun. You wonder why Discovery Land Group is dominating and growing, which was a down economy, right? I had to laugh. 8 years ago, we banned music on our course. Then we started selling Wingmans, and now we just brought in carts with speakers. I think it rocks. It's fantastic, right? But the truth of the matter is we want to be entertained because, my God, for 5 hours, I sure as hell can't go without checking my phone. And I like to have music because my mind's got to have multiple things going at one time. How many of you have watched a football game recently without your phone, tablet, or computer in your lap? You can't do it. You just can't watch a movie. My wife and I watched Peaky Blinders, which if you ain't watched it, is fantastic. Got to watch it with the subtitles. And we had to laugh that we had to put our tablets down to watch it because you can't read subtitles like this, right? They want to be nurtured because to them, they don't know how to be criticized or critiqued. We have to educate our kids at Alabama and teach them how to receive criticism because they never have. Because coaches will acquiesce to them to help them overcome what they're going through, to get them in a situation and say, hey, wait, don't leave me because I need you on my team. I need you in my roster. I need you on my Instagram portfolio. And so we tend to acquiesce to them. And entitlement's not a bad thing. This doesn't mean that they're jerks. It doesn't mean anything like that. What it means is they believe that they are worthy because some teacher somewhere told them, you can have anything you want. No, you can't. You can't have anything you want. Sells a lot of books, destroys a lot of minds. There's a lot of things I want, but I'm never going to win the 100-meter dash at the Olympics, okay? And I'm not going to fit into a 911 Porsche. It's just not going to happen. But I want anything I can have, right? No. You can't have everything you want. You can do everything right and still come up short. I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. If it wasn't for me getting injured, I wouldn't be doing this, and this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. We don't know. And I'm bringing this up because I don't want you to sell them on a world that Suckville is not the answer. Suckville is fine. It is okay, but I don't want you to feel like it's a reflection of you when your players struggle. PGA Tour players win 80% of their money in 5 events a year. Unless you're Patrick Cantlay this year. Well, actually, it's probably still the data probably still holds. It's the ultimate 80-20 rule. And so what I teach my players is when you've got your best, you don't need me. You need me to make your average better so that when you don't have it, like Sam didn't have this week, he stayed in the fight. He stayed in the fight and top 5'd. And I'm not going to say this in a bad way. He missed a couple on par 5s inside 5 feet. That would have at least given him a second, but it's okay. He had 2 doubles on Friday. And yet, his average is getting a lot better. Tiger's was great, but his average was phenomenal. So let's talk about the complexity of performance in science and life. And I'm going to take some questions at the end, and I hope I'm making sense here where I'm going. And by the way, this is a new talk. I didn't want to do a canned talk, so thank you for allowing me to work through some new content. And yes, I did finish it yesterday. Okay, because I have anxiety. It's awesome. And I sit there, and I work on it until I just can't work on it anymore. What does that sound like? What we do every day. Uncertainty is the norm. We don't know anything that is going to happen in front of us. Who would have thought 2 years ago our kids would have had their seasons taken from them? We used to tell kids, play like it's your last game you'll ever play. I hope I don't get injured. Yeah, I know, me too. Then all of a sudden they got a phone call. Season is canceled. And if you were a senior, you were done. They didn't know that they were going to be given another year. But it's uncertainty. Players, I knew I was going to play well. BS. You didn't know that. You knew you were feeling good. But I would tell them, when you play that way, are you better to deal with the uncertainty or worse? Oh, when I know I'm going to play good, I can handle anything. Oh, so you were more accepting of uncertainty. Yeah. Okay. See, what happens when we get anxious is we start trying to force it into a box that makes it look a certain way. Like it has to be this way because I've done the work. And so what happens is uncertainty is a threat for us. We don't know how it's going to go. And what happens is it raises our arousal levels, it raises our anxiety, and it makes us question, chase, and lose our minds. And we get caught up in the what-if game. Well, how am I going to play? What are they going to say? Who are they going to do? What are they going to... All these other things versus I can stand up to it. I can face it. Like, really, is there anything that we do that we can't stand in front of and face? Minus death-defying, things. No. It may suck, but I can face it. That's why I want my kids to stay in the venue if they struggle, because I want them to not freak out. Because the struggle is everything. See, Suckville is the space between your reality and your expectations. Somebody sold our kids that their potential, they're going to reach one day. Nobody will ever reach their potential. Let me pee in your cereal now. You will never reach your potential. Because what's going to happen is every time you do well, and you're like, oh, that's good, you raise the level and you move that potential up. See, you talk to kids and they say, I just want to make the team. Then it's, I want to play. Then it's, I want to play really well. Then I want to play on the university. Then I want to go to college, right? We always move the line, and that's great. That's a human experience. Our brains, evolutionarily wise, are not meant to be content. A lion only hunts when it's starving, and it doesn't miss. They don't have gazelles piled up in the corner of their den. They hunt when they can't miss. And what happens is we ignore so much our reality because it's not reaching what our perception of our potential is, and we flush it. And when you talk to players and you say, well, tell me what you're doing right now. I mean, look what it was last year. Yeah, but I should be out here. Why? In psychology, we have a term, don't should on yourself. And it's true. Should never has a good term. It never brings a positive message. And what happens is we start waking up every morning, and instead of enjoying the challenge in the game, we wake up and think, God, I got to go make the donuts again. And honestly, I've had a player tell me, which I thought was some amazing insight. He said, Bhrett, when I have a 2 o'clock tee time on Sunday, and I'm driving in because I'm in one of the lead groups, and I see the group that teed off at 7 a.m. driving out, I think, God, it'd be nice to be them today. And when I have that 7 a.m. tee time, and as I'm leaving the course, and that 2 o'clock tee time's coming in, I'm thinking, God, I wish I was them. Being good comes with an emotional burden. So does being bad. The truth is we have to get up every single day and make the donuts. And it's hard. Somebody, you ask, do you love what you do every day? Yeah, but I still have to do things I don't want to do. And it's still hard. It still challenges me. See, we all go through this process, and this is what happens when players get to me. They get to me in a situation where they're in Burdenville, right? That's Suckville. They'll say, God, it's hard. Nothing is going my way. It is frustrating. It is difficult. It is not easy. And you say, and we all tell them this, well, let's just go out there and have fun. Let's go out there and have fun again. Okay, give me the hand chipper. That's fun too. That's what it feels like to them. So when we tell them just go out there and have fun, what we're doing is saying go out there and punish the living hell out of yourself and think you're wrong because you're not having fun. It's not fun. Bad golf sucks, and bad golf ain't fun. Right? It sucks. So what happens is they get stuck out there in the Burdenville. See if that'll go back. They get stuck out there at the burden because when they started the game, when they were young, when we started coaching, we were excited. We were learning new things. We were challenging our belief sets. We were going out there and learning, oh, I could do this now. Ooh, I was able to make a birdie. Ooh, I was able to help a kid do this. And then eventually, somewhere along the lines, that enjoyment, that success that we kept building up and enjoying started to become a job. And the job is a currency exchange. If I do this, I get this in return. If I do better with my players, players get better. And then I get more players. And then they get better and I get more. And then eventually, you have to do that, or else you're not successful. And it becomes a burden. And the emotions become devastating. They pile on. And it's really hard. Don't tell them to have fun. Ask them what makes them have fun in the game. What gives them confidence in the game? Oh, results give me confidence. Nope, can't happen. Because if you go out and shoot 62 tomorrow, the first thing they're going to go is, oh, crap, I got to do it again. But if they start seeing trends in their practice and their game, and you can turn them back into being their own investigator, they can start enjoying it again. See, we all have fear. Fear is a good thing. Fear is an amazing thing. Hollywood directors years ago realized that if you add music to scenes, it primes the mind to be scared. We all know this theme, right? Dun, 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 right? And that's saying, don't go in the water. There is a mean thing that's going to eat you. But if you ever watch a horror film without the music on, it's almost comical. There's absolutely no fright. People jump out and you're like, oh, okay. You add the music, and what happens is that music sometimes predicts the bad thing and sometimes it doesn't. And your mind is caught in random fear. And on the flip side, we can all play the Rocky theme. Dun, 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 dun. And if you ever listen to the words, it's I'm getting stronger. I'm getting stronger. It means I'm preparing for something unknown. They're both telling you about the future. One's telling you it's going to be scary, and one's going to tell you it's going to be great. Both of them are telling you how you're going to handle it. Fear is fine. I'm going to dive into fear here in a second. We all deal with resistance. Resistance is the first psychological emotion that happens when you ask people to give up what they're doing and try something else. You guys deal in resistance and trust. You have to understand that resistance is not about you. It's about them. And if you understand why they're resisting, you will understand where to coach. Because they're holding on to something they're afraid to give up. They're either not buying into what you're telling them, or they're trying to prove that what they've done works. How many of you have that player that when you give them something, they go, yeah, but that's resistance. That means that either they can't give up what they have inside them, they think that their way should produce results better, or they think yours is a load of malarkey. They're not educated. So when they resist, it normally results in us resisting back. And, oh, okay, here we go. We're going to battle now. And then we get mad at each other and nobody talks and everybody leaves and goes home frustrated. Versus going, okay, we're going to have a little resistance here. All right. And so the best way to move a donkey, you can pull and you can push all day long. Just let the donkey lead and then guide them where you want them to go. And that's what you have to do with players. We deal and live in resistance. We're all dealing with frustration, right? And so when frustration happens in the game, I don't see it as bad. I think it's great. I just want to know what it is. Last night as I was going to dinner, I got blown up on my text. And I said, dude, you are chasing something every single day. What are we chasing for? Yeah, I know, but I know I'm better than that. I know you are on a test track. But in the uncertainty of a golf course, with uncertain demands and challenges, you're not. Because you're trying to prove that you can run on a test track. Not the same thing. There's a couple myths in golf, all right? So here, I'll be the a-hole. You can't be calm on the golf course. If you look at my player list, they're all a little hot-headed. Sweet. Great. I told John, don't change who you are. Just don't beat signs up. Okay? Make eyes with a kid outside the ropes. That always helps. But we can't be calm. We can be comfortable. We can be confident. But how are we calm? There are days that we're calm. And you'll hear people say, just for some reason I woke up this morning with a sense of peace. Sweet. How did you do that? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so we're not going to try to find that. I don't teach to the flow state. I don't teach to a 5% occurrence. I teach to the 95% when it's not there. I want them to feel uncertain, uncomfortable, and nervous. I want them to feel and not buy into the myth that fear is teaching them that something is wrong. See, what happens with fear is that when fear comes in our head, we have to resolve the why. Why do I feel this way? And our mind will continue to search the room until I find the threat in the room. And if the threat is I'm not swinging it well, I'm going to be judged, I feel a little uncomfortable, my right hip feels tight, then we're going to fixate on that, and the mind will continue to throw thoughts at it until it resolves it. The mind uses thought like a radar system for bad storms. Every time we send a thought to it, it looks for the danger in the environment. And so when it finds it, if it can't resolve it, it'll keep sending it until you understand it or give in to it. So how can you stay calm? I want my players to feel committed to dealing with anything. I mean, what can they really do? All they can really do is commit to the shot they're going to hit and go after it. I've heard this. Doc, I need to take my range game to the golf course. Yeah, you can't. No way. It's impossible. It's not the same place. Never hear pitchers say, I need to take my bullpen game out on the mound. I knew as a pitcher that I could warm up very fast because I always had 8 pitches on the mound to get ready to go. But I knew what pitch I could always find. I may not have my plus fastball, I may not have my plus change or plus slider, and I never had my plus changeup. But I had what I had, and I could compete. So instead of trying to prove what you did on the range with a 500 yards wide and extra balls sitting there with the same lie and repeating it over and over again, why instead of taking what we swing it like, why don't we take the tools of who we are out on the uncertainty of the golf course? Why don't we understand that what we do on the range is refining tools, not refining swings? By the way, your brain is not built to create the same motor movement over and over again. Because if you are, then you become a threat. Or not a threat, you become food if you move the same way every single day. We adapt. If I was walking off the stage and I tripped and fell, but I didn't fall on the ground, I caught it, I wouldn't say, God, I suck as a walker. God. I spent quite a bit of time with Bubba, and just a great guy. And I said, Bubba, you swing it like the way it's supposed to be swung. Yeah, something different all the time. That's just because he likes it. Now, that doesn't mean our practice is worthless. Oh, hell no. We're training tools. We're training mindset. We're training process. We're not training replication. It's impossible to replicate. Okay, let's train our astronauts in a simulation, and then the first time they go up and they feel 0G, it gets real. Okay? So the only way you understand what 0G feels like is to do it a lot. But we train tools, processes, decision-making, focus, things like that. And I think one of the biggest threats we have in the game today, I'm not knocking coaches, I'm just saying this, is I think we teach to their A game way too often. I'll ask kids, hey, do you have a fairway finder? No. Why? Well, I mean, you should see my TrackMan numbers. They're great. Sweet. Okay. So what we used to have in baseball is when we started a game, we had what was called the inevitable 2. 60% of the time, the starting home team pitcher would give up 2 runs in the first inning, and you're automatically in a hole. Starting pitchers come out, if you watch the games on the playoffs right now, starting pitchers come out in the first and second inning, and they're not going to their plus stuff. They're working into the rhythm of the game. They're still trying to strike guys out. They're still trying to get hits, but they're not trying to go to the far extreme. And there's some days they just don't have that. But they know what they do have. I'll come back and talk about this in a minute. See, Suckville is the cycle that happens when we get frustrated. We get down, we get disappointed, we get angry. So I want to help you help your teams, your guys, your players break free. So let's talk about some things to do here. Number 1, don't overreact to the troublemakers. If you go out in the water for somebody who's drowning, you are the person who will drown. How many times do we read the paper? 3 rescuers went out for somebody in the riptide. They came back alive, but not the rescuers. And that's what happens. We start chasing them. We start trying to help them. We start reacting. We give them too much power and control versus saying, wait a minute, I have a plan and understanding of what I'm doing. Let me see the bigger picture. I had a soccer player tell me something so brilliant. She said, Bhrett, when I'm out on the field, I try to see myself in third person. I'm like what? She goes, you ever play Fortnite? No, but I know it. Okay, Fortnite, the camera sits up here behind me, and I can see the field so much better versus seeing it right out of my eyes. Wow, pretty good. Try to see you in that situation. How many of you this is rhetorical, but definitely put up your hands. How many of you have actually filmed yourself teaching and watched it? Why? Those of you who have not, why not? What are you afraid to see? We had to film ourselves do therapy, and when you had depressed patients, you would find yourself sliding down in your chair. And when they were anxious, you're up on the front of your chair and you're talking like this because you're part of it. It was some of the greatest insight in the world. And yes, I look fat in this shirt, and yes, I don't look comfortable, and yes, I'm too big for the chair, all those other thoughts that we all have. But if you're not teaching your player and they say, okay, let me tell you what to do, versus having a plan. I also encourage every coach to keep a notebook in their back pocket when you're watching a player hit balls, so you can write down what you want them to do instead of reacting to every bad swing they create. Don't be in a hurry to screw up. Be the bigger plan. Write it down. Hit a few more. Write it down. And then make a plan. Because I usually get the call of this, dude, I've got so many swing thoughts in my head right now, I don't know which one works. Because that's a lot of times how they interpret it. Because they're not hearing what you're saying. They're hearing a spirit of what you're saying based on how it matches what they want to hear, not what you are actually saying. So have a plan for your troublemakers. I want you to be a better guide. What a great word, a guide. Right? A guide. I'm going to walk with you through this. But there comes a point as a coach that we have to take and let them go. And then they have to become a better explorer, and we're the guide. If you look at who walks and goes to the top of Mount Everest, right? If you're a first-timer, you don't go up there by yourself. You hire a company who hires a Sherpa who's been at the top of the mountain 25 times. They have been there a lot, and they're more experienced. They have a guide. Have a guide. Be a better guide. Remember, their anxiety wants you to feel uncomfortable. That's part of it. Where does that anxiety come from? Bad experiences, lack of knowledge, past traumas, not knowing what these thoughts really mean. All anxiety is unresolved cognitions that have a body impact. See, each and every one of you are catalysts. It's never about a coach. It's never about the coach. It's about, did you get them in a position to handle anything? You are the spark that gives their flame their fire. And sometimes you're the fuel. But your job is to build them and get them into a higher level, to have a bigger plan, to see what you need to do to get them ready for the competitions that they're going to face, internally and externally. We don't have thought bubbles above our head. It makes this job the hardest there is, because I can't put them through a physical assessment and say, hey, you look like you're moving weird. I have to make assumptions based on what I think and see, which are 95% of the time wrong. So I have to ask questions. See, as a catalyst, I have to be deeper than that. There are two types of people and coaches in this world. When stress is on the horizon and things are difficult, there are reactors and there are responders. See, reactors see stress on the horizon and they do everything in their power to not experience the pain. All they want to do is survive. All they want to do is get through the crap, right? All they want to do is make sure that they are self-preservation. And so what happens is every decision they make is about avoidance, prevention, protection. And from a company standpoint, American Airlines. Anybody like flying American Airlines? Yeah, don't put all your hands up at one time. Okay, Burger King, I would know this. How many times have they changed their French fry recipe? Okay, Blockbuster, out of business. Kmart, out of business. The Washington football team, horrendous. New York Knicks, horrendous. They can't form their own processes to create success, whereas responders are different. They see stress on the horizon, and they may have to wear it. They may find it difficult, but they use this challenge to make themselves better and more resourceful. There's a company out of Birmingham or Baton Rouge called Raising Cane's. I don't know if y'all have it out here. Oh yeah. Started right off literally right off the campus of LSU. We're better than Ezra used to play. And they're going to do about $1 billion in revenue this year. Chicken fingers ain't new, but they do it better. You've got Amazon. I'm saying that because they're probably listening to me. Amazon's awesome. Okay. Delta Airlines. I love Delta. I am a Delta loyal. I'm a million miler. I am Diamond. I freaking love Delta. But one of the reasons I like them is they'll admit it when they mess up. They own it. Okay? The Patriots and the Spurs and Netflix. Brilliant. Oh, by the way, Netflix is not a streaming music company or streaming video company. Y'all know that, right? That's why Blockbuster went out of business. See, they chased Netflix and tried to be better at dealing with how they handled the streaming music. Netflix is a data collection company. They use the video to get your data. Blockbuster didn't understand that. And therefore, they lost. Companies like Netflix understand it. By the way, a little bit of drama going on this week with Netflix. Whether you agree with it or not, watch how they're handling it. It's really good. Now, I'm not drawing a line on the issue, but they're making a stand on what their company is. That's fine. That's their decision. Is their decision. So coaching must address the psychological, the emotional, and the physical aspects of player development. You guys are the best sports psychologists there are, bar none. You see your players all the time. You're better than me. My job is just to come in from the outside and be the specialist and give you a little guidance. I enjoy coaching coaches more than anything else. And when I work on a team, I have more interaction with the coach than I do the player, and a lot more interaction with the caddy. And that's even in the college ranks in football teams and basketball. I love this quote for just a simple reason. Because as a coach, you got to understand you're in it for something bigger than just wins and losses. This is the statement that Steve Jobs asked his buddy when he asked him to come back and leave Pepsi and come back to Apple. And it was, do you want to sell sugar water the rest of your life, or do you want to change the world? I think very strongly that the iPod is the most innovative product of our lifetime. It changed the way we do everything. Everything. And this Maya Angelou quote, you guys should all have it memorized, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do, it's how you make them feel. Okay. So is emotion good or bad? So let's take a look at it here for a second. Fear and emotions come from a biological stance. There's nothing wrong with that. Because if we were sitting here and all of a sudden we heard weird noises outside that made me feel uncomfortable, I would probably become hypervigilant and start looking for the door. I had a gentleman I did a podcast. If you listen to my podcast, his name was Skip Sneed. I had a kid in my office that said, you got to interview the band director at University of Alabama. I'm like, why? He goes, I'm telling you, he had the yips of the lips. I'm like, what? Dude had the yips of the lips on the French horn. I mean, how fascinating is that? But it's true. He was a world-renowned French horn player and got the yips of the lips. Like, fascinating. And he would have so much anxiety before he went out on stage, but he developed a process. He didn't see anxiety and struggle as a negative. He saw it as a way to get ready. And what he did is he said, hey, Bhrett, anywhere I go in the world to play the French horn, I know that there is one constant in every concert hall. What is it? I'm like, well, the stage. He goes, no. The exit sign. It's universal. And I would have the feelings, and I'd walk out on stage, and I would stand up there and, hey, thank you. And I'd look for the exit sign, and then I looked at it and said, all right, I know where to go if it gets bad. So let's just give them everything I got until I get there. In other words, what he said was, why am I feeling this way? What's wrong with me that I have the yips of the lips? All that other stuff. Instead, he said, hey, this is part of it. And I have a plan. See, it's deep. Your amygdala is an almond-shaped process in the brain. And that prefrontal cortex is the thing that makes us go nuts, because it's our higher level thinking and cognition. It's what we call executive functioning, our ability to think, organize, and plan. And when that amygdala and what we see work together, we have to respond to it. And the science of fear tells us that it is really, really good. Because we would not be here today if our fear system was not phenomenal, because our ancestors had to use it. So, but hitting a golf shot's not fearful. Huh, you're right, it's not. But there's nothing more threatening than a hit to your ego. Yeah, you can have a real threat of somebody beating you up, but if you think that people think you suck, that hurts worse than people telling you that in person. The what if is always so much worse. But fear is good. Arousal is good because it helps us focus. This is what I call the funnel of focus. Every player I work with, no matter, and I'll say, look, are you stressed? Yeah. Okay. Can it impact the way you step into a shot? Yeah, I mean, I just haven't heard them. No. Can we not be in a hurry to mess up, and can we be clear on what we want to do? See, to me, the left side, the blue funnel, is what it's all about. Before you hit a shot, when they're walking the fairway, I don't care what they're thinking about. There is no way you can stay focused for 5.5 hours. In fact, 95% of golfers eat like total crap on the golf course and don't have the energy anyways, but that's for a whole nother thing. Because your brain takes up 25% of the energy in your body. So it's like an app that steals all your energy. They don't feed it. Yeah, but I get nervous. Okay, yeah, eat. Okay. So I want them to think like a funnel, wide to narrow. Before they hit a shot, wide and accepting, clear purpose, step in and execute. That's ideal, so I'll tell them to flip the funnel. But the right side, what that is, well, what happens is they stand behind the ball and they're not really comfortable on what they're doing. They're not concerned, they're a little stressed. And by the time they get over the ball, they have 47 thoughts in their mind. We have to be accepting to be funneled. You have to know the psychological fingerprint of every player you deal with. Every single buddy is different. Everybody is different. I talk about this in Suckville, and I'll go into more details at a later time if you want to. But these are the 13 factors I assess when I'm working with players. This exact picture's in the book, too. So that way you can't take a picture. Okay, you got to own your own process. Okay, these are my coaches I work with. That's my old dude on the left, and that's Coach Saban. Coach Bertman had the system. Coach Saban had the process. The one on the left was the one on the right's athletic director at LSU. Two most successful coaches in the history of their individual sports. And they were built around systems and processes. How many of you have a system and a process? Stand up if you do. Okay, first of all, whether you're managing people or teaching people, stand up. If you're leading people, if you're running a club or anything, stand up if you have a process. How many of you standing up have it written down? If you have it written down, stay standing. If you don't, sit down. Y'all, every one of you, next time I talk to you, when I ask this question, I want 100% of you people standing up saying, I have a process, because every one of you do, and I want 100% of it written down. Every single year, I want your process written down in a binder. 2021, this is how I develop juniors, this is how I market, this is how I do everything. Get a piece of paper, pour yourself some bourbon or red wine, and let it rip. Fill it out and start developing it. Because at the end of your career, how many of you would love to have a 100th of what Jim McClain has in his head? Yeah. And imagine when Jim retired, I'm just going to say this, assume, he had all of his volume of information written down. You talk about a national treasure, y'all are going to be the same way. If you don't have it written down, what are you going to do? If you don't have it written down, then you're reacting. What you do is you come here and say, oh my God, Bhrett was awesome, unbelievably good looking and smart as hell. I know. And I was going to be such a candidate for The Bachelor, but I was married. But the truth of the matter is, you're going to come out of here and go, oh, all kinds of new information. I'm ready. And you're going to just take that and start using it. And where does it fit into what you already do? You should have a section on mental game. Develop it. You're going to have Rick Sessenhaus, pretty good at what he does. Write that down. Hey, I read a book from Malcolm Gladwell. Write that, take those notes, put it, and then at the end of each year, you evaluate it and you build the new plan for 2022. And all of a sudden, you look at your book at the end and you have bookshelves of philosophies. And more than likely, it hasn't changed. It's just gotten better. See, success is about these 4 factors. This is in the book too. It's about skills and talent. It's not a talent game though, y'all. It's how you apply that skills and talent under pressure. If you're mentally flexible enough, which is your ability to adapt and adjust, and how you manage plus or minus luck. See, most of us focus on those first and the fourth one, and we ignore the middle 2. See, I want you to increase the confidence of your players. And we know, as Jack said, confidence is the most single and greatest factor in this game. But what I try to do is get them to believe belief and build belief. Belief is the factor that you can create and face anything. I believe that I can play good. Billy Horschel left to go to the BMW in Europe. He said, boss, I'm going to win that thing. And I said, yo, let's not get our expectations ahead of ourselves. He goes, no. Got a little red ass, but I'm going to win that thing. He said, I believe I can face any conditions that are over there. And lo and behold, he won it. So he believed that whatever happens, good or bad, I can accept the outcome. And he was good. Confidence builds belief. Trust builds confidence. A plan builds trust. And a vision builds a plan. Hence, if you don't have your plan written down, your process, we're stopping right there. That's why I want every one of my players to write down their practice and text it to me and their coaches every Sunday night for the week. You got to have about 15% of failure built into your training plan and your work. That's from a research study that came out that said every system of life has a 15% failure rate, or it does not lead to success. You have to flush out 15% of your employees. You got to flush out 15% of your clients. All those. As coaches, we're all hired to be fired. Just get really good at getting fired. And don't ever burn a bridge. That's just the thing. We got to deal with pressure. Remember that second factor? It doesn't matter how good you are. If you can't do it under pressure, it doesn't matter. Well, pressure impacts you in 4 major areas. It impacts you physically, mentally, it impacts your decision making, and it impacts your resiliency. And you say, well, I'm not really playing at big section events. No, if you're managing people, that's pressure. Think about how when somebody's pushing back on you, where it hits you. We all feel it physically. We all think different. And I have my players send me this after every time they get into a pressure situation. How did it impact you physically, mentally, decision-making, and grittiness? And it's amazing to listen to their comments. And when they write it down, they go, interesting. Because they have to be the best investigator. I teach to the average. I coach to the average. I want you to be average. But I want your average to be better than everybody else's. All of our performance in theory follows the bell curve. That middle is our average. And most of our stuff's going to fall within 1 standard deviation. That's about 68% of our scoring. But most players anchor out on that far right end, and if it's not special in that 5%, they get pissed. And they ignore, and they're frustrated when their average is what keeps hitting. So you average 76, you shot 76, and you're pissed. Sounds like your average. We got to make our average better. So you got to own that average. I found that online. Isn't that cool? You got to own your average. People don't want to own their average. They want to tell you how special they are. And so what you have to understand is when I work with players, I always tell them, you don't know what you're going to have today. You will never have 100% of your abilities. Ever have 100% of your abilities. There are things that are going to take away from you. And if you've done the training, those are your capabilities, your 100%. But when you step across that line and you go compete, that's why practice does not predict performance. What are you able to grab into? Can you maximize what you have versus chasing what you don't have? The vast majority of competitors chase what they don't have versus maximizing what they do have. I want a player to text me and go, oh man, I had 50%. Yeah, sweet. How'd you do? I won. Sweet. You maximize what you had, not what you have. So that's why I focus on those 2 middle things. I want us to develop their A, B, and C game. I want you to have a player to say, hey, when you have your C game and you realize it, what are you going to do? I had a player who won their qualifying and he goes, well, I just started hitting spinny cuts. Sweet. That's great. So we train to compete, to trust the tools. Greatest pitcher to ever pitch, Greg Maddux. He trained, trusted, and understood who he was, what he was, and how to do it. And he took what he had every single day and he beat you with it. So many of our coaches, players want to be Lamborghinis. But you have to have pristine conditions to drive a Lamborghini fast. So that may be a Ferrari. I don't know. I'll never fit in it. Say, I'd fit in that. The thing that drives it, picks it up when it breaks down, that can handle any scenario there is. I don't train Ferraris. I train workhorses that get in the trenches of any sport they're at, and they know it's going to be ugly, and they know it's not going to be pretty, but it's sure as hell going to be effective. Because we focus on the simple things, not the big things. The easiest things. So I'm going to leave you with this. And then I'm going to give you a giveaway. So everybody get your phone out. So Van Halen has the greatest growth hack of anything that's ever been done. Years ago, this is a great band, right? Not Sammy Hagar. Sammy Hagar is a better solo act. David Lee Roth realized that when he'd go to stages that they just kept not having things built the right way. And it was really important for him. And they actually went to a venue that they'd put down about a $500,000 floor in. And they got a call from the manager afterwards that said, dude, you broke our floor. He's like, no, we didn't. He's like, yeah, you broke our floor. He goes, nope, no way. Your stage broke our floor. No way. He said, and the guy goes, how do you know? He said, and by the way, why did you destroy our green room? He said, well, I figured that'd be better in the press. He said, but when we walked into our green room, we had M&Ms. Yeah, that's what we told you. We'd have M&Ms. That was in your rider. He said, but if you had read the rider about where it was on the stage, it had a very clear statement within the stage specifications that there will be no brown M&Ms in the green room. We knew you didn't read the little things. You just overlooked it. David Lee Roth developed a foolproof plan to know when they walked in. He said, anytime we walked in and they had multicolor M&Ms with brown M&Ms, we trashed the green room because they didn't respect us enough to read the entire contract. See, you have brown M&Ms in everything you teach every single day. Let's find those brown M&Ms and make sure we don't have it. So you're building people to be ready for anything. All right, so get your phone out. Break Free from Suckville is coming out today. I really believe in this book. If you don't like it, tell me. Don't tell your friends. If you do like it, tell your friends. What I want you to do is I want you to text the number. If you have a U.S. phone, I am not responsible if you have an international phone, what comes back. That was a very embarrassing experience one day. What I want you to do is I want you to text the number. So put the number in the number section, 66866. And in the subject, just write the word mind, all caps. And it's going to, when you hit send, it'll come back and ask you for your email. And you're going to get a free chapter of Break Free from Suckville right now. You'll get it immediately, within about 10 minutes. If you like the book, give me a chance. Like I said, if you don't like it, just please tell me. Just don't tell anybody else. Just tell them how good it is. So text mind to the number 66866. And you'll have it as you're eating lunch. Everybody got that? There's 5 things we can do every single day, y'all. We can show up. We can stand up to what we're going to face. We can face any frickin' challenge in front of us. We can always make somebody's life better, and we can always leave it better than we found it. As a coach, show up every day, find out who you're coaching, stand up to that challenge, face it, make them better, and leave it better than you found it. Okay? All right. Thank you. What questions y'all have? We got a few minutes for questions. We got about 10 minutes. Yes. Anybody? Is that a stretch or a question? Okay. I'll repeat the question too.
For instance, I have a 12-and-a-half-year-old, very good player, club champion. During a lesson, you might be working on something, like something in the right arm, whatever it is, and they do it for 3 swings, and they start talking about a totally different subject that has nothing to do with golf whatsoever. That bouncing back and forth focus. We're seeing more kids like this. I'm just trying to figure out how can we bring them back to home.
So the question is when you're teaching a young kid in the 12, 13 range, and their mind is all over the place, and they can focus for a little bit, then they lose it. It's the nature of who they are right now. There's a kind of a funny little statement. And Michael Breed, when he gets here, he'll kind of tell you that, I think, and he's the one that shared it with me. We had a good talk about it. Is that the human attention span is less than a dolphin's right now, or goldfish, right? We're hyper aware of anything that's going on. So it's not their fault. Plus, at 12, 13, their brains are not mature. Your frontal lobes don't develop until you're about 22 years of age. That's why you do really stupid things until you're about that age. Then you realize, wow, that was stupid. But it was sure as hell fun. So one of the best things to do is to break it up into small segments with them. So I would challenge them in other things and anticipate that's going to happen. So in other words, let's work on this for 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Then let's do a challenge with something else or talk about it and then say, okay, now let's get back to it. So instead of resisting where their mind is going, give in to it, because a lot of times that resistance creates more energy that gives them frustrated and they want to talk about something. It's really hard for them to pay attention. Yes?
You talked about it earlier, dealing with the, I can't take it from the range to the golf.
Yeah.
How do you talk to that student?
So how do you talk to the student that can't take it from the range to the golf course, and that's what they're focused on? It takes some work, because we believe that we should transfer, right? It should just automatically transfer because I swing it. So I educate them, first of all, on why that's so hard. I talk about pressure is a lot different. Well, yeah, I didn't feel any pressure. Yes, there's pressure. You feel pressure before you're aware you feel pressure. I often ask them what they're focusing on and what they're thinking on, and I'll use the terminology of the funnel of focus. And I'll get them to understand that usually when they're hitting shots, their focus is really funneled, but they probably weren't picking clear targets. So they were more accepting. And so we look at the tools as what can you do and repeat over and over again. That's not swing focused. Or it may be one thought in the swing. I'm okay with that because the mind's got to usually have a swing thought. But I'll say, what can we do? And teach them that winning ugly is still winning, playing well and winning. But a lot of players will say, I mean, you hear this, would you rather play well but not score than score and not play well? They'll all tell you, I'd rather hit it well, because they're future thinking when they do that. Because if I can't hit it good today, I can't hit it good tomorrow, and this trend is going to be bad. And so what we do is we reinforce the fact of it's usually not as much off as you think it is. You're magnifying it because of pressure, stress, desire. Let's get a clear intention of what we're going to do and work ourselves in there. And then let's play the game with clear intention of what we're doing. And usually that works through it. So I go ahead and blast it right out of the gate. You can't take the range game to the golf course. Because how many of you, I'll use this in putting. So you dropped a couple balls, you made a couple 15-footers. Does that make you feel like you're a good putter today? What do you mean? Like, yeah, so on the 17th hole, you remember those 3 15-footers you dropped on the putting green? Oh, yeah. Like, it's hard. Tell them it's hard. It's really hard. I always tell them, how did you do in the puzzle today? How did you do in the obstacle course today? Make it a challenge that it's hard versus a validation. Too many players are trying to validate what they've done. They're not taking the challenge on. Validation kills us. Yes?
Is it better to try and create a better ball striker or a better scrambler?
That is a question I can't answer. I can tell you how to throw a slider on the edge of the plate. And the reason I say I can't handle that is I want them to be – so is it better to have a scrambler or a ball striker? That's when I would defer to the swing coach and say, what are you trying to build? Who are they here? I mean, I'll give you an example. We looked at one of our players' data, right? You know, a lot of statisticians running around out there right now. And he's like, your short game sucks. And the player's answer was, well, if you were having to get it up and down from where I was, your short game would suck too. Tell me what they want, right? Tell me what they want. One thing I'll say with this, and about the simple things. You know, you go to McDonald's, you walk in, if you look around, it's usually kind of dirty. This is going to answer your question. You look in the drink trough, it's kind of filthy. You look at the ketchup dispenser, it's got ketchup on it. They give you sauces, it's sticky. Right? You go to In-N-Out or you go to Chick-fil-A, they don't make that mistake. They don't miss. So what I'd ask them that is, who are you? What's your psychological fingerprint? How do you like to play? I mean, we all say, well, if we could just make Aaron Badley drive the ball, but well, we can't. You are who you are. Golf is actually a biathlon. It is not a singular game. Y'all realize that, right? Putting and full swing are not the same game. It is like going on Nordic skiing, then laying down and shooting a fine motor movement shot. Let's start looking at the game differently. It's a biathlon. So to me, it's like, how did people, well, I had to say, you never had it to start off with. Let's achieve what we can. There's no birdie holes. Every hole's a birdie hole. There's no easy holes. All right, yeah.
You know, the whole, mental health and all that's been up with the whole Simone Biles and Michael Phelps.
Oh, yeah.
People have had all these gold medals, but she didn't want to, even compete. And then you got someone like Phil Mickelson or Phil Mickelson who's 51 and just seems like he loves the game as much as he did when he was 5. And then you got, a journeyman tour pro who never won, but he just loves it. And you got these great athletes with all these successes. Like, how do you, what's better than the other, right? Like, okay, how the success being miserable versus this guy hasn't had that much success, but he loves it. Like, what's that all about?
Don't know. So today, Lane Johnson, a lineman from the Philadelphia Eagles, came out and said, if you've wondered where I've been dealing with depression and anxiety, and I've been on the IR, and I'm coming back. I write about it in the book, but we talk about Michael Phelps as how can he be depressed? He's the greatest athlete of all time in his sport. Simone Biles is the greatest athlete in her sport of all time. Serena Williams is the greatest athlete in her sport of all time. And how have they all had psychological issues? Because they're human. When you have to put that vulnerability out there, a lot of times what happens is we assume that they're good at everything in their life, and people accommodate them. I sat down with Wright Thompson, who's to me the finest sports writer in all of sports. He's the one that wrote this story on Tiger Woods about jumping out of the airplanes with the SEALs and stuff like that. And he lives in Oxford, Mississippi. And so we went over and spent the time, and he said, Michael Jordan, when he met his new wife, her family's of Cuban descent, and he sat down with the family and their dad, and the dad looked at him and said, now what do you do for a living? And it was the first person since his dad that actually called him Mike. Because if he wanted to go to China tonight, everybody would say, okay, let's go. And what happens is we build success as the only way we're going to be happy. Olympians are a little different because they build their entire world around one moment in time. And when it's over, there's an emptiness. There's also a lot of data on post-marathon depression. Okay, I would have pre-marathon depression, but that's just me. But they do that. So I look at somebody like Phil and I say, not knowing what he's been going through and how he balances his life. You look at a lot of players, it's very hard to be successful in anything you do without a great partner in life. And a lot of times, if you look at great leaders, great politicians, that's an oxymoron, but great leaders, they usually have a great right-hand person with them who takes it all. I will tell you this from Coach Saban, his wife deserves a Nobel Prize. He hates interacting with people. He's socially awkward. He's socially anxious. He just wants to put his head down and do his work. Miss Terry handles everything around it and builds the platform. So when you take away, a lot of times, that siloed interest where their evaluation of who they are is dialed in, they may not be built up in other areas. And one of the theories that I have in athletes in college is that because they can run, throw, hit, do all those other stuffs, a lot of times we accommodate them until we get them into college, and then all of a sudden the stress and the pressure hits, and boom. And so that's why you're integrating. My belief is sports psychology is 20 years behind where it should be. It's 20 years behind strength and conditioning. If we had done this talk 30 years ago, TPI would say, hey, we're going to help fix your problems. Now kids come to us and they've got a TPI coach when they're 8. And kids are coming to college with full-time swing coach, strength and conditioning coaches. Now we're starting to see psychology being constructive versus corrective. And what I want our kids to do in school in first and second grade is learn mindfulness, learn how to have conflict resolution, things like that, because that's more important than, can you carry the two, in my opinion. So to that point, we don't know. I think Phil has a certain personality, and I haven't spent much time with him, but I haven't done like an analysis of him or anything. But I would tell you that he's probably got a pretty complex way of looking at the life, and it works for him. That's great. And he probably has his outlets. And we all have those outlets. Somebody like Michael Phelps, Michael Phelps has a history. I mean, he's got a father who essentially left his family. His mom had to do just about everything for him. And his father kept coming back up and showing up when he got to a certain level. You talk about violating who you are as a person when the people are only in your life because of your utility. That's going to violate a lot of social norms.
I guess then, as a coach, right? Like, to me, it's more important. Like, yeah, like I'm over Bhrett, okay, he's in jail now. Like I have a tiny little chance to like impact this person, like when it's an hour a week, or a couple hours a week, whatever. Like
How do you do that?
not even how do you do that? Like I like the thing for me is like yeah, the golf swing, like how all that stuff. But it's like how do you? What's more important that when they're like 50 or 60, they're like a really good human being?
Well, that's what we hope for, right? So the question is what do we want? I mean, we want them to be great at what they do, but we also want them to be good human beings. We don't know what they're going to face in life, but I will tell you this. The first factor of being a catalyst to me is you got to be connected to your kids, the people you lead. If you don't know them, you don't know them. If you don't know who they are and what they're experiencing, Coach Saban, when we recruit players, they essentially have an FBI notebook on them. They know who's their influences. They know everything about them. And then we meet with them multiple times to understand them. And I think as a coach, you can be interested in them. Like a couple rules on that. Put your cell phone up. Okay? Don't answer calls, texts, and stuff like that. Be present with them. Listen to them. Ask them what they want. A lot of people who come to work with you, they don't really care if they're swinging a better. They just need somebody to talk to or be around. That's okay. Just ask them, what do you want to get done today? And they may say, I've had a terrible week. Can we just hit some shots? Yeah, cool. But if you care about them and you know about them, and I had a colleague of mine who said something best. He takes the notes section of the contact, writes down the parents' names, the kids' names, how old they are, what they're interested in. So when the phone rings, he can go like, hey, Bob, how you doing? Hey, how's your daughter like in Auburn? Makes somebody feel like they're connected to you. We can do the same thing. One more question. There was one over here. Yeah.
Are there a lot of guys on tour doing hypnotherapy?
Hypnotherapy is interesting. So tell me about hypnotherapy, right? I don't know what they do. The one thing about psychology is people don't walk around telling you what they do. When I first started working out there, I thought, oh, man, I'm going to get a lot more clients. Yeah, I didn't get any. And one of my players said, why would I share you? Makes sense. But I used hypnotherapy when I pitched. That's what broke me free. And I'm very thankful for it. I mean, to me, now, gone through the training I have and being licensed and all the other stuff, I would say that the beauty of hypnotherapy is deep visualization and relaxation, okay? And most of us don't take the time to sit down. If you guys don't have headspace or calm, get it, okay? It's phenomenal. You can sit there and learn. I've never gone past the first episode of Headspace because it talks to me. Like, I get it. Like, I understand it. It helps me focus. So that's what a lot of hypnotherapy is. Now, how do you make people cluck like a chicken in a comedy act? I have no idea. But there's something there that I can't explain. But I think it's just letting go of the barriers and allowing yourself to go deep within your psyche to understand. And then in the heat of the moment, if you believe it, that's all that matters. I want to thank every one of you guys. This is great. And it's always an honor to coach coaches and to help lead you guys to become better influences. If you guys are the guides, you're guiding our next generation, whether they're my age, they're kids, they're older, you're guiding people if the ripple effect is there. So to everybody here, thank you for the opportunity. I'll be around all day and answering anything that you guys have. If you need my diet and exercise plan, I'm happy to share that too. Y'all have a great day.